It came in low, heavy, like it had dragged itself across miles of dust and silence before reaching the trailer park outside Los Lunas, New Mexico. Not a storm wind, no something quieter. Like breath against the back of your neck. A black and white television hummed inside one of the trailers, casting a flickering gray light across an empty couch. The morning news murmured to no one. A coffee mug sat cooling on the table untouched. Outside the door was half open, and the sky was already the color of a rusted coin. The Chevy Suburban parked outside was still running, the keys in the ignition, the door ajar. But there was no one behind the wheel. Michael Crane had vanished. A journalist, 35 years old, stringer for small paper's occasional contributor to local radio. Known in Albuquerque for his late-night call-ins, rambling theories, and obsession with a place that didn't appear on any official map, Kirtland Site Delta 5. He'd been chasing something everyone knew that. Something buried out in the scrubland near the military perimeter, a place he said didn't officially exist, but that leaked strange power like a cracked battery. He left no note, no signs of struggle, just his tape recorder on the passenger seat and a single phrase scrawled in his notebook. "They know I'm close." At first, no one believed it was serious. A grown man can disappear if he wants to. Maybe he snapped. Maybe he found what he was looking for and ran. But as days passed and the desert held its silence, something darker began to settle in. He hadn't taken clothes, he hadn't withdrawn cash. His dog was still in the yard. And his last known location, a point plotted roughly 3.4 miles outside the restricted boundary, led to nothing but scorched earth and a crumbling fence half swallowed by sand. The search was slow, disorganized. Local police issued a missing persons bulletin. Volunteers combed the brush. His editor called in every favor she could. But the area was a no-go zone. Federal land, military property. And every attempt to get access was met with the same answer: no records, no relevance, no comment. Then came the rumors. An underground structure sealed since the Cold War. A failed experiment. Short-wave signals that didn't match any known frequency. People started pulling away from the story, not out of fear, but fatigue. As if the closer they got to the truth, the more it bled out of their memory, like fog in sunlight. By October, the file was quietly closed. Michael Crane was gone, another name on another list. But 21 years later, someone opened that file again, and what they found should not have existed. It started with a heat bloom. 2023, a record-breaking drought year in the Southwest. Contractors were using thermal scans to locate underground pipe failures near the outskirts of the old Kirtland zone, now mostly decommissioned, a skeleton of its former secrecy. One of the scans showed a heat signature beneath a slab of concrete. Roughly 7 feet across, no record of piping underneath, no structure marked on any blueprint. But when they dug cautiously, slowly, they found not a pipe, but a vault, sealed from the inside. The door was welded shut, unmarked save for a rusted chain coiled through the handles and a padlock that crumbled on contact. Inside, stale air. Thick, metallic, still. There was no furniture, no bodies, no signs of life. Just a generator, a shelf with half-melted magnetic tapes, and a battered audio deck still plugged into the wall. And in the center of the room, a chair, facing the wall. Cushion torn open, straps on the armrests. Blood dried into the bolts. They found a single tape still in the machine, corroded, half erased. But one phrase, barely audible, broken by static, repeated 3 times: "Don't listen. Don't listen. It's not him anymore." When analysts tried to restore the rest of the tape, the file corrupted every system they transferred it to. 3 techs reported migraines. One claimed to hear the voice even when the playback was paused. The tape was sent to a secure facility. labeled with a caution code normally reserved for biohazards. And then, nothing. Silence again, but someone had made a copy. And in late December, an anonymous parcel arrived at the home of Claire Mercer, former radio producer, and the last person to speak to Michael Crane before he vanished. Inside the copy of the tape, and a page from his journal. Claire didn't go to the press. She didn't post it online. She listened, and then she disappeared too. But Michael Crane's case isn't cold. It's not even open. Officially, it doesn't exist anymore. The records were pulled in 1995. The field notes shredded. Even the physical copies of his articles began vanishing from archives one by one without explanation. Some blamed mold. Some blamed error. But those who knew him, the few who remembered, kept pieces. Like his editor Janine Brooks, who kept his tape recorder in a drawer for 2 decades. Like a radio technician who saved one of his old broadcasts on cassette. Like the gas station clerk who swears she saw him 2 days after the disappearance, barefoot, covered in dust, and walking away from the horizon with a look that wasn't his. Most of them have stopped talking now. The ones who still do. Their stories don't align. Timelines slip, dates blur. One man insists it happened in 1990. Another swears it was 94. They all agree on one thing: something was wrong with the air that summer. No one knew when Michael started hearing the static. He never told anyone directly, not in the way you'd expect. But in his tapes, especially the ones recorded at night, there were strange gaps. Moments of silence where words should have been. Then a pause. Then a sentence that didn't seem to belong. In one recording, he's reading notes aloud, typing softly. Then suddenly, "If you're hearing this, I'm already too close." The next 30 seconds are blank. Then it wasn't a building. It breathes. His friends brushed it off as late-night dramatics. Michael had always been a little theatrical. That was part of his charm and part of what made people stop taking him seriously. He was the kind of guy who brought maps to diners, circled locations in red, leaned in too close, whispered like the air itself might be listening. He kept talking about an abandoned comms relay station near the southern edge of the base. Said it had no listed power feed, yet emitted low band pulses every 7 hours. Said he picked it up on a homemade radio rig. No one else could replicate the signal. By July, he stopped calling people back, stopped filing stories, started keeping everything in his notebook, a leather-bound journal that looked like it had been through a war. Torn cover, scratched pages, inside frantic sketches, coordinates, times, words that repeated. The door is older than the base, not a facility. A mouth. I heard it again. It's closer now. On his landlord said he was up all night in the trailer, the lights would flicker. Sometimes they'd hear him talking. Not on the phone, not to anyone in the room. One night a neighbor knocked to complain about the noise. No answer. But they swear they heard movement, feet dragging across the floor, something tapping the walls from inside. Michael didn't own a pet. 2 days later, the trailer was empty. No sign of struggle, no forced entry. Just the hum of the television, the engine running, and a worn-down man's life paused mid-sentence. Sucks. We got to where the police followed standard protocol. Canvassed nearby gas stations, pulled phone records, questioned anyone who knew him. What they got was a jigsaw puzzle with half the pieces scorched. A cashier remembered him buying 6 cans of tuna and a roll of copper wire. Said he looked hollow, didn't make eye contact. A gas station attendant said he drove west out of town. Alone. But the most unsettling detail came from a ranger who patrolled the land near the old boundary. He claimed unofficially that 2 hours before the disappearance, he passed a figure on foot near the restricted zone. Said the man was walking straight into the desert. Calm, not lost. like he knew where he was going. But what chilled him wasn't the man's expression. It was the fact that his shadow was pointing the wrong way. The official search began with heat maps and aerial scans. Drones, dogs, tire tracks. The only thing they found was a radio half buried in a wash of red dirt, its battery melted into the casing. The tape inside was warped, but some of it played were close. It's just up ahead, then silence, then static. Long, slow, unnatural. But layered beneath it, barely audible, was something that didn't belong. Not a voice, not even a sound. A shape. That's how one audio engineer described it, a shape in the sound. Like something was crawling beneath the frequency, mimicking a human signal. The file was never released, classified due to national interest. Within a month, the search was called off. By late September, people stopped asking questions. There was nothing new. No leads, no body. But one woman kept going. Claire Mercer, former radio producer, ex-colleague, and the last person to interview Michael on air. She never believed he snapped. Said she listened to his final broadcast over 100 times. Said the pauses didn't feel like distraction. They felt like interruption. She started driving the desert roads he mentioned, took photos, started making her own recordings. Then she went quiet too. Her friends said she stopped sleeping, stopped answering texts, would call at 3 a.m. and just breathe into the phone. One night she left a voicemail. Just a single sentence, "I think I brought something back." The next morning she was gone. Her apartment was untouched, lights still on, coffee cup half full. The only thing missing was the tape she'd kept hidden for 21 years. There's a theory that Michael never left. Not in the way people think. That whatever he found, whatever he opened didn't kill him. It kept him, bent him, rewrote something deep in the signal of who he was. And that what came back wasn't really him anymore. Because people started seeing him again. Not clearly, not in the city, but at the edges of things. Highway cameras caught brief frames, a man standing in the median blurred by motion. Gas station footage showed a face just outside the light. Never quite focused, always gone before the next frame. Every one of those sightings happened during a power fluctuation. And in every case, the equipment failed within 48 hours. Burned out, glitched, dead pixels spreading across screens like mold. The parcel arrived without a return address, wrapped in plain brown paper. No postage stamp, no fingerprints, just the name handwritten C. Mercer. Inside a data drive, a Polaroid, and a single torn page from a notebook. The handwriting was unmistakable. Sharp, anxious, looped hard like it had been written with trembling hands. What I saw isn't in the dirt. It's in the recording. It's in the pauses. It's what speaks when nothing should be speaking. Claire Mercer had disappeared 6 days earlier. The drive was sent to a private digital forensics lab in Colorado. They were told it was related to an old radio case, nothing sensitive. No one said anything about the previous tape corruptions. The techs plugged it in, and for exactly 11 seconds, every monitor in the building flashed the same pattern, black screen, white text repeated 3 times. "Where did you go?" Then the systems went dead. Permanently, drives fried, displays blank. The contents of the drive were gone, except one file survived on a backup cloud node, a fail-safe copy that triggered before the wipe completed. What it contained is still under quiet review. But the summary from the analyst who reviewed it was leaked through an encrypted email chain that fall. And it said this: it's a video. Just one. 42 minutes long, static for the first 19 minutes. Then audio begins. Not voice, not speech. Like breath, but reversed. And shapes. Shapes that shouldn't move like that. I watched until the timestamp hit 37:14. That's when the camera tilted on its own toward something carved into the concrete wall behind the chair. It was Michael's name, Michael's, but not as if someone wrote it, as if something inside the wall had been pressing outward. The analyst resigned 2 weeks later. No reason given. She hasn't been heard from since. Then came the journal, recovered from the locked drawer of a storage unit Claire had rented under a different name. Unit 15B, far west side. Cold, quiet, no camera footage after October 3rd. Inside was a single notebook leather cover, warped by heat pages, yellowed and brittle. But someone had written in it recently. The ink still fresh, still smearing at the edges. I finally found the coordinates. They were never in the desert. They were inside the interference pattern, hidden in the pauses between shortwave pulses, like teeth, like something gnawing at the inside of the world. The last page was a sketch, not words, just a spiral, black ink, so deep and layered that it bled through 6 pages behind it. At the center, a doorway, not drawn, but pressed into the paper, as if etched by something sharp and shaking. There were no fingerprints on the journal, except one partial belonging to Michael Crane, logged into federal databases. Last recorded in 1986. Something began to change after that. The story stopped being a story. People involved with the case even tangentially began reporting the same dream. A hallway, featureless, dimly lit like an old bunker, long, narrow. At the end, a door, not locked, not open, just waiting. And the sound? A radio hiss, low, like breath through static. Then a voice. Do you remember the shape I left in you? One researcher from the digital recovery team took his own life in December. His last note said simply, "The tape is playing when no one's around." Another, a contractor from Nevada, went missing while on vacation. His hotel room showed no signs of disturbance, except the TV. Still on, volume muted, but the screen was frozen on a single image the desert viewed from above, with a black dot in the center and a date in the corner. 7/18/1992. The day Michael disappeared. So what was it? What did Michael find? Some think it was a government installation. Some say a failed experiment in psychotronics weaponized sound. Others claim it was never a structure at all, but something buried beneath one. Something that mimics frequency. That learned how to crawl inside human perception using only the patterns of silence. But there's another theory, one almost too fragile to speak aloud. That Michael was the experiment. That the base wasn't guarding a secret. It was observing one. And that when he got too close, it didn't take him. It copied him. In 2024, a low-resolution satellite image went viral on a fringe forum. At first glance, desert terrain, cracked earth, no structures. But in the lower corner, barely visible, was a shadow, human in shape. But too long, arms slightly extended, facing directly upward as if aware of the satellite. The image metadata was traced. The original capture was in 1992. But the file had been modified in 2023. And the edit tag, Crane Mask, Duerld Dorowaro1. That tag doesn't exist anywhere else in public records. But Crane Mask has appeared in one other location. A corrupted line of code embedded in the firmware of an experimental drone sent to scan abandoned bunkers near Kirtland. That drone lost signal 43 minutes into its flight. It returned on its own, power drained, memory erased. But its camera recorded a single frame overwritten into the file header. A corridor. Concrete, with a chair at the end. Facing the wall. You start to lose time when you spend too long with this story. You'll be driving and forget where you're going. You'll wake up and the TV will be on even though you're sure you turned it off. Static. always static. The voiceover I'm reading to you now, I recorded it once already. But when I played it back, there were words I don't remember saying. Pauses I didn't write. Whole sections that sounded like someone else had taken over. Same cadence, same rhythm, but not me. It's possible that the story is just a story. A man obsessed with a myth. A reporter chasing shadows. The government sealing a hole they didn't mean to dig. But I've read every report, listened to every surviving tape, and there's one thing no one else caught. It's buried in the third tape recovered from Claire's archive, the one most people thought was too degraded to be useful. At exactly 1843, beneath the static for less than 2 seconds, there's a voice. Not Michael's, not Claire's, but mine. My name. Spoken in a whisper that stretches too long to be natural. Like someone dragging it through broken speakers. I don't remember recording anything on that tape. I wasn't even near New Mexico in 1992. I was 9 years old. But my name is there. I stopped sleeping 3 weeks ago. My walls buzz at night, not a sound, but a pressure. Like something low and heavy pressing against the drywall. My email drafts write themselves. One sentence over and over. Let me back in. Every time I try to delete it, the screen flickers. Just once. Long enough for the cursor to jump backward and retype it again. I've started seeing him, Michael, in the edges of things. Reflections, windows. A man in a jacket too thin for the season eyes, too wide watching but not seeing. And every time he looks more like me. Same posture, same walk, a half-second delay like an old video feed syncing with real time. There's a mirror in my hallway I've covered with a blanket. I don't trust what I'd see in it. Not anymore. I received a voicemail this morning. Blocked number. No transcript available. Just static, then the sound of breath. Then a voice, faint, familiar, curling up from a place that shouldn't exist. It said, "You're almost back to where it started." Then silence. Not just on the call, in the whole room. The lights dimmed. The refrigerator stopped humming. The fan on my laptop froze mid-spin. And for one long moment, the air around me wasn't air at all. It was listening. There's a pattern to these stories. A shape that echoes. The disappearance, the silence, the rediscovery, and then the replacement. It's not a linear story. It's a loop, an orbit. Michael Crane was just one satellite caught in it. Claire was another. I think I've become one too. And the truth is, I don't know if I'm telling you this to warn you or to bring you closer. Because every time this story's told, something follows it out. Not a person, not a ghost. Something older, something patient, something that learned how to hide inside narrative, inside memory, inside sound. The old answering machine on Claire's desk, the one police cataloged but never recovered the tape from, was found again last month. Someone bought it at an estate sale. They didn't know what it was. They just plugged it in out of curiosity. The red light blinked once. Then the tape started playing on its own. It was a voice, breathy, distant, saying, "It's not a story, it's a door." And then a sound, like someone knocking from the inside, 3 times. Slow, deliberate. There's no conclusion to give you, no resolution, only this if you've made it this far. Something may already be listening to you, and not in the way you think. It doesn't want belief. It doesn't need fear. It wants repetition, a loop, an echo. A story told so many times that it begins to shape the space around it. And if you ever hear static in the middle of silence, stop listening. If you see someone standing still at the edge of your vision, don't turn. If you hear your name whispered from a speaker that isn't plugged in, it's already too late. Somewhere in New Mexico, deep in the scrubland, there's a fenced-off section of land no one maintains anymore. The sign is faded. The cameras are dead. But beneath the dirt, there's still a sealed room, and inside that room is a chair, facing the wall, still warm, and on the wall behind it, a handprint, fresh, still damp, the initials MC scratched below it. But if you listen closely, very closely beneath the silence, you might hear the soft sound of a tape rewinding itself. Back to the beginning, waiting for the next person to press play.